You wouldn't drive across country with a flat tire, right? But a lot of writers try to crank out chapters when their brain is low on fuel or out of alignment. This video is your creative pit stop. I'll show you how to tune up your brain so it runs smoother, thinks faster, and writes better, starting this week in 7 days. Your creative output isn't just about time management or just about willpower. It's about your brain and what it can produce when you want it to. And your brain, it is a physical organ, just like your heart, your lungs, your kidneys, and all the rest. That means it runs on biological signals and nutrients and blood flow and certain circadian rhythms. And then if any of these things are off, you're going to have trouble creating as well as you want to. On the other hand, you can change how it performs pretty quickly by changing how you treat your brain. If you've been dragging your feet, feeling tired, feeling brain fog, losing your focus, or struggling to access your ideas, this might not be a discipline problem for you. It might be a brain problem. And the good news is we can work with that. I've spent more than 25 years as a health and wellness writer, and in that time I've written a lot about the brain and what it needs to be healthy. Then I've tested these practices myself to find out what really works. So today I'm going to walk you through 7 things you can do to supercharge your brain this coming week. Plus I'm going to tell you which mindset types can benefit most from which tips. And if you don't know what I mean by mindset types, feel free to take my quiz at the link below. It's totally free and it'll give you your unique mindset type in about 5 to 10 minutes. Number 1 is what I call neural surfing. In other words, you got to move to get your ideas moving. We writers, we don't move enough. We are stuck to the computer all the time. I say this from experience. I have to force myself or remind myself to get up and move, go take a walk, go do some biking, go do something to get the blood flowing, because a still brain is not a creative brain. It is not a smart brain, and it is certainly not a fast moving brain. When you move your body, even if it's just getting up and dancing for 5 minutes, blood flow to your brain increases. And what does blood have? It has all those nutrients that your brain needs to operate at its best. Movement also boosts levels of dopamine, that feel-good neurotransmitter that we hear about so much these days. Dopamine is linked, by the way, to motivation. It helps motivate you, and to idea generation. These are crucial for creative thinking, right? You need to be motivated and you need to be able to think up new ideas. Research, for example, shows that just a simple walk can improve what they call divergent thinking, which is basically thinking outside of the box. So in short, movement gets your brain out of the stuck mode and into the flow mode. So here's the suggestion. If you're stuck, go take a walk. Or even better yet, schedule in a 10-minute walk before you sit down to write. Take your phone with you if you want to voice record any ideas that occurred to you, but whatever you do, work a regular walk into your schedule. Walking is something most of us can do really easily. This is actually a requirement, I would say, for all writers. We should all be doing this, but in particular for fire starters. Fire starters are fueled by energy and quick momentum. They love the ideas. So if you're a fire starter and you're lacking on ideas, that means you've probably been sitting too long and you need to get up and move. Okay, second tip for supercharging your creative brain is to go on what I call hypnagogic treasure hunts. There is this like half dream state that we all go into right before we fall asleep and right after we wake up if we have time to go through it. Now, if you wake up to an alarm and have to immediately jump out of bed, then you might be missing this period. If you can wake up without an alarm and give yourself 5 to 10 minutes in that kind of sleepy state, that is the hypnagogic state. It also shows up right before you actually fall asleep. So you're getting tired, your brain's slowing down, and you start getting into this middle phase before you actually fall asleep. That's also the hypnagogic state. This is a place where your brain is more likely to be creative because of the way the brain waves are moving. When you get into this state, you're activating the default mode network. This network is responsible for memory consolidation, but also for imagination. And it's essential for creativity because it's associated with the ability to connect ideas that don't usually go together. A lot of creativity is bringing two things together that don't normally fit together to come up with a new creative idea. Being in the hypnagogic state activates the network in the brain that helps you to do that. When you're in this hypnagogic state, your inner editor is going to be quiet because it helps your brain let go of logic and internal criticism, and this makes it easier for unusual insights or ideas to come forward. So how do you use this hypnagogic state to tap into your creative brain? All you do is take a short nap. So I'm talking no more than like 10 to 15 minutes. And you prepare yourself before you take this nap. So let's say you're stuck on a plot point, or you have a question you want to ask yourself, like, what is Susie going to do in the next scene of the book? Maybe you're not sure yet. Then you get yourself in a really comfortable position and you just relax, you close your eyes, you make sure that there's no sound, you have sound canceling headphones, calming music, something like that. You don't force any ideas, you just gradually let yourself relax. And it's important that you set a timer before you do this, because you don't want to fall all the way to sleep or you'll lose the effect. You have to let yourself go only as far as you're almost all the way asleep. What Salvador Dali, the famous artist, used to do is he would hold a spoon in his hand and put a plate on the floor. And when he was so relaxed that he actually dropped the spoon onto the plate, the spoon would hit the plate and wake him up. And that would stop him from going all the way to sleep and allow him to get down his ideas. So what you do is when your timer goes off or the spoon hits the plate, you quickly jot down whatever ideas came to you. If no ideas came to you, don't give up. Try it again another time, because gradually you will train your brain to hang on to those ideas long enough for you to record them. This works really well for all writers, but if you are a seer type, it can be especially helpful because seers thrive on insight and intuition, but they can get tangled in overthinking. So this quiet in-between state can help you tap in to that idea generation strength that you have. But like I said, it's good for any writers. If you're running low on ideas or you have a problem that you're stuck on, just set that problem in the form of a question before you take your hypnagogic nap. Number 3 way to supercharge your creative brain is what I call brain alchemy. The brain operates on the nutrients you give it. And studies have shown that if you eat fast food, for example, that you create inflammation inside of your body. And that also affects your brain. It's a negative effect. It tends to slow things down. The brain specifically runs on a particular type of fuel, and that is the fatty acids, especially omega-3 fatty acids that you see talked about when we're talking about fish oil. These help build flexible cell membranes, and they support clearer thinking and better memory. Antioxidants, too, those that you find in fruits and vegetables, protect the brain cells from oxidative stress. And oxidative stress slows things down and causes brain fog. That's what you get when you're exposed to pollution or when you eat too much fast food, that kind of thing. When you give the brain the nutrients that it needs, you're literally building the conditions you need for faster mental processing and a longer creative attention span. If you find yourself getting distracted more than usual, then look at your diet. So how do you put this into practice? I would suggest, number 1, that you eat healthy most of the time. In addition to that, you can create a pre-writing ritual that includes brain fuel. So maybe it's a bowl of fruit, or a glass of water with lemon, or a bowl of yogurt with nuts and berries. The cool thing about this pre-writing ritual is that if you choose a really healthy food, if you eat that, the small amount of it, before every writing time, eventually your brain's going to associate that food with writing. It's amazing how the brain makes associations, and it's actually going to help encourage you to write. So the next time you're eating carrots, you're going to feel the urge to go write because that's kind of how you've trained your brain to associate those two things together. Again, this tip is something every writer should follow, but it's specifically helpful if you are a bastion mindset type. Bastions thrive on consistency, but oftentimes they tend to neglect themselves because they're so busy on their routine getting everything done every day, and they can ignore their physical needs and end up chowing down on something unhealthy just to get something to eat in a short amount of time. So if you give yourself a nutritional ritual like this before you write, it's going to help to ground you and to give your brain what it needs, and also to signal that now is the time to write. The next way to supercharge your brain is what I call cognitive blacksmithing. Creative work is often derailed by distractions. And it's not just social media and the internet that can distract us. It can also be our emotions or our stress that day, or anything that may be going on in our lives, or maybe we're overthinking something in our writing. The solution to this is meditation, and it doesn't have to be complex. Meditation can be as easy as pulling up a 10-minute guided meditation on YouTube, sitting back and relaxing relaxing, listening to that guided meditation, and then you're off for the rest of the day. I've been doing this, and it's amazing how much it can help calm down your thinking. It does so many great things, and it's really hard to describe it to someone who hasn't experienced it. All you're doing is sitting down and listening to a guided meditation on YouTube. I would say just do that, because what that does is it helps reduce activity in the amygdala, which is that back part of the brain that is the fear and the threat center. So it can help calm down any anxiety that you may be feeling, whether it's about your writing or something else. And meditation also strengthens the prefrontal cortex, which is in the front of the brain and is responsible for attention and focus and logical thinking and emotional regulation. It also increases activity in what's called the anterior cingulate cortex, which is just a complex name for a place in the brain that's responsible for impulse control. And impulse control is what we need if we want to resist distractions. Over time, this supercharges your brain to be more creative when you want it to be, because it's not distracted so much and it's not caught up in fear, anxiety, or other emotions that are difficult to manage. One really good way to use this is to do like a 5-minute guided meditation before you start to write. Or you can simply sit for 5 minutes and just focus on a statement, something like, I'm showing up to write today. And you just close your eyes and set the timer for 5 minutes, and you just repeat that statement to yourself. Just that simple of a meditation type activity can really help you focus on your writing. This is necessary for every type of writer, but it's especially helpful for heartsmiths. Heartsmiths feel things deeply and are emotionally immersed in their work. And that can make them a powerful storyteller, but it also tends to make them prone to burnout or overwhelm or stress and anxiety. Meditation helps to create that calmness that heartsmiths need to manage that emotional up and down, or to write those powerful emotional scenes without becoming overwhelmed. Number 5 way to supercharge your brain for creating, I call idea prospecting. The brain loves to work on autopilot. Everything that we do, it tries to learn how to do it automatically so that we don't have to think about it. If you think about when you first learned to drive, you had to think about so many things. Now you drive and probably don't think about much of anything but wherever your mind is wandering. The brain takes whatever we learn and puts it on autopilot as quickly as it can, because that's more efficient, takes less thinking power. So if you're in a regular writing routine, eventually your brain can start to run that writing routine on autopilot, which in some ways could be good, because maybe that means you're getting all your writing done every day without having to think about it too much. But in some ways it can get you into a rut. If you find that you're struggling to get over a plot point problem in your novel, or you're not coming up with new ideas, or you're feeling a little bit apathetic about your work lately, it could be that there's too much of this autopilot stuff going on, and what you really need is some more novelty in your writing life. You need something new in your process, or where you're writing, or something to stimulate the dopamine again and get your brain livened up so it's not just following the same old rut. Change up where you write. Change up what tools you use to write. Change up what project you're working on. Maybe go write with another writer friend. Pull out your journal and write on some other type of project. Do a poem, or do a children's story, or do something that's just going to wake up that brain a little bit. The best option, if you can, is to get away for a couple of days. Take your writing with you, head out to some pretty location and stay there for a couple of days and let it just refresh your brain, so that when you come back to your writing, you're going to feel fresh again. All writers need to do this, but the path breaker type needs to make sure they're working this into their process, because path breakers thrive on innovation and new ideas and novelty and new ways to approach things. If their environment starts to get stale, their energy really plummets. A fresh setting, a different way of writing, a different genre even, can supercharge their creativity so that they're going full throttle again toward finishing that story. Number 6 way to supercharge your brain, I call pattern priming. Your brain is a pattern detecting machine. Once it knows what to look for, it's going to start scanning and solving things in the background, even while you're doing something else, like taking a walk or taking a shower. This is why you get your best ideas when you're taking a walk or a drive or a shower, is because your brain's doing this work in the background. It's called preconscious processing or incubation, where you have an idea and you just sit it in the back of your brain and let it go to work on it. You can take advantage of the brain's natural tendency to do this by priming it. You prime your brain by reviewing the structure of your story, or the outline of your story, or reviewing the problem that you're facing right now and speaking it out loud. Right now I'm stuck on what to do in Act 2 of my story, or with such and such a character of my story. You prep this question, you prime your brain before your next writing period. most effectively the day before or the night before you go to sleep. And then hopefully when you return to the page the next day, your brain will have been working on this and an idea is going to come to light. Here's a really good way to do this. Before you finish your writing session, jot down a specific question about what's coming up next. How will such and such a character respond to this scene? Where will the next scene take place? Is what the character did in this scene true to that character? Write down that question at the bottom of the manuscript after you stopped writing. Then you let that question sit in your brain. You make sure you review that question, read it out loud before you shut down your work for that day. Your brain's going to work on that as you're going about the rest of your life. That's the way you prime it. You prime your brain to give you answers without having to work so hard, and this helps you to be more efficient on the whole. This is perfect for all mindset types, but it works really well for story writes. Story writes love structure, logic, and clarity, but they can get stuck if the next step isn't perfectly mapped out for them or if they got stuck on their outline or synopsis. Pattern priming this way taps into the brain's natural strength and into the story write's natural strength of creating structure and logic in the way that the story plays out. Once the brain has the framework, then it can go to work on whatever the issue is and give you the solution the next day or the day after that. And finally, the last way to supercharge your creative brain in 7 days, I call the sensory reset. Okay, so your brain is constantly taking in sensory input. We're talking about sound, light, movement, notifications, your emotions. Your brain's always taking in all of this and managing all of this. And over time, this can just be overloading. It can tax your brain's resources and it can tax your nervous system. And if you're sensitive to any of this, if you're sensitive to noise or other people's emotions or sound and light and all these things, it's going to especially tax your nervous system after a time. You're just constantly tired, or you can't seem to get enough rest, or you're irritable because all these things are coming at you and you haven't been able to take a break from them. If you're feeling any of these symptoms, what you need is a sensory reset. And this means just reducing the amount of sensory input that's coming at you. So it might be just sitting in a dark space for about an hour with no sound, no phone, no nothing, just sitting in a dark, quiet space and allowing yourself to just be. In some areas, you can find sensory deprivation tanks, or float tanks they call them, where they actually immerse you in water, they give you a breathing apparatus, and you're surrounded by water and you can breathe while you're there. There's absolutely no sensory input whatsoever. And I've heard that this can be a little bit scary, but it can be really restorative for some people. If you don't have something like that in your area, then you can accomplish something similar by just maybe driving your car somewhere that's really quiet and sitting there for a while, or getting away for a couple of days into the mountains where there's not noise coming at you. This shift quiets the external chatter and noise and gives the brain space to finally relax a little bit, to reflect, to think over everything that's happened, and to start processing everything that it's already been receiving. When you do this kind of a reset, it's like resetting your computer. You're getting rid of all the junk and you're allowing your brain to start fresh, which is going to naturally make it more creative. So how to do this? I would say at least once a week, take 15 to 20 minutes. I think 30 or longer is better for a sensory reset. That means turn the lights off, wear noise-canceling headphones or go somewhere super quiet, and then sit or lie down somewhere that feels comfortable, and just allow your mind to just be. And let the thoughts go wherever they are, but don't put too much pressure on yourself. The idea here is just to let the brain relax, get rid of the junk, and reset. This is wonderful for all writer types, but sparklings in particular can benefit from it. Sparklings thrive on creative connection, which means that they can often be out there attuned to everybody else's energies. They're absorbing not only what's coming at them, but what other people are feeling or sensing or saying, and that can just be overwhelming after a while. So a sensory reset gives a sparkling a space to disconnect from all that external input and reconnect to their own voice. Your mission of the week, should you choose to accept it, is to simply build your own 7-day brain boost plan. And you can use these 7 steps that I've told you, or some others that might fit specifically with your mindset type, which you can find in the quiz results, or in my Master Writer Mindset Type Playbook, which is also available at the link below. To help you customize your own brain boosting plan, ask yourself these 3 questions. First of all, what is my writer mindset type? Second, which brain boosting strategy best supports my strengths or fills in a gap that I've been struggling with? And finally, what small doable action can I take this week to try out this new idea. Good luck designing your plan, and I'd love to hear which of these brain-boosting techniques you think will make the biggest difference for you. Please tell me in the comments. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.